are watching Discovery Health Channel.
You know, I was quite certain that I could kill almost anyone. I could do these things without even thinking twice about it.
A family's legacy.
I obsessed. I thought I needed to kill the baby.
Bipolar disorder, a debilitating mental illness. A new treatment comes from an unlikely place.
It is an unbelievable story.
Can a nutritional supplement for animals bring peace to people suffering from bipolar disorder? Or are they simply buying snake oil?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Tony Stephan is the kind of man who lives for his children. There are 10 of them and half a dozen grandchildren. To outsiders, the Stephans look like a big, happy Mormon family. They are close and devout.
Our righteous Father in heaven, we're truly grateful for this wonderful day, and we're grateful for the food that's set before us. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
But this family has an anguished past. After the birth of their 4th child, Tony's wife Debbie struggled with severe emotional problems. She finally went to her doctor.
She was diagnosed with bipolar affective disorder 1, certainly a very common disorder. Very, very typical in that sense. She rapid cycled. That means that she would move fluctuating between depressive moods and moving into the euphoric side, the manic side of the cycle.
For the next decade, Tony watched his wife deteriorate.
There were some days she couldn't get out of bed, where she had no vitality for life at all, where her life was very sullen, very, very deeply depressed. Then she would have the mood swing. She would move into the manic cycle where she was very, very high and she had a lot of energy, and by 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, the lights were all on the house, the vacuum cleaner was running, the music was blaring. A lot of inappropriate behavior.
They tried a cocktail of drugs, but nothing worked. Desperate, Tony decided to move to Debbie's hometown. Cardston, Alberta is bedrock Mormon country. Surrounded by family, friends, and her church, Tony hoped Debbie would get better. But the move only made things worse.
I remember waking up one night in the middle of the night, and she was in bed with me, and she was sitting up and she was crying. And I remember asking her, "Deb, what's wrong? What's happening? Why are you crying?" And she said, "I just don't know. I don't know who I am anymore. Am I this person or am I that person?"
But Tony wasn't around much to comfort her. His new job as a distributor of pet supplies kept him on the road a lot.
I was afraid to leave home, yeah, because you didn't know what you were going to face when you come back.
Debbie wallowed in a deep depression for 2 more years. By January 1994, she could take it no longer.
I had a very, very bad feeling about the situation. I called a number of times, and unfortunately, it came to me. I felt like she was gone.
While Tony was away on business, Debbie Stephan hooked up a hose from the exhaust pipe of their minivan. She died of carbon monoxide poisoning. Debbie's case is all too typical. Bipolar disorder is so severe, 1 in 5 sufferers commit suicide.
Here was a mom that had a great love for her family, and that just couldn't do it anymore. That just couldn't cope with all of the depression and all of the confusion and all the cycling and all of the problems that are part of that disorder. I think that's the saddest part of the whole thing.
Scientists believe some people are predisposed to bipolar disorder. New research suggests a stressful life event may alter the delicate balance of neurotransmitter chemicals in the brain. Too much of one chemical, too little of another, can trigger periods of wild and inappropriate behavior, followed by deep despair. After Debbie died, Tony got a new job as a property manager, which kept him closer to home. He remarried. He and new wife Barbara did their best to hold the family together, but it was a struggle. Tony began to see that two of his children, Autumn and Joe, had inherited their mother's disorder. Joe was just 13 years old when he first noticed the signs.
I would just get all dark and dingy. You know, I was quite certain that I could kill almost anyone or anything. You know, it even scared myself that I could do these things without even thinking twice about it.
Here was a wonderful young little guy, and all of a sudden this young man hits puberty. The whole picture changes, you see. All of a sudden he's depressed, and he's hyper irritable, and he rages at the drop of a pin, and he's explosive, and then he's high.
And Joseph was dangerous. He was obsessed with knives.
I was very paranoid of being attacked by, you know, like government kind of things, you know, SWAT teams and stuff. So I would stockpile just about any kind of weapon I could get my hands on. You know, knives, even rifles, just about anything that I could maim or destroy. I would have piled away somewhere.
He slept in the room above us, and if it sounded like he had woken up and gotten out of bed, we were up like a bolt. We had to. We were very, very nervous, very, very afraid, because his behavior was so unpredictable.
So Tony Steffen began a long search for help for his troubled son. That journey would end with a remarkable discovery. But it began with a visit to Brian Lowe, the Steffen family doctor.
When I saw him in early April of 1995, there were a lot of concerns about Joe and his family. His family was actually quite terrified of him, and he was delusional at times. Joe had verbally threatened to kill his siblings and his stepmother several times. I felt at this time that he was definitely bipolar. I prescribed lithium in April of 1995. There was some concern about his compliance with medication of lithium.
That was just a horrendous feeling. I hated that. Whenever I would take that, I would get the shakes and just feel so crappy. Like it made me feel not all there, like physically. I just didn't feel good at all.
Like so many bipolar patients, Joseph had trouble with the side effects of lithium: nausea, grogginess, and weight gain. He resisted taking the medication.
We'd have to literally take him down. Numbers of us, 2, 3, 4 of us, would have to take him down on the floor and load him up with lithium and pour water in his mouth to get him to swallow it. When you're that desperate, you'll do anything. You'll look under every rock to find these answers. I spent a lot of time on my knees. There wasn't any answers.
Tony was at his darkest moment when he believes his prayers were finally answered.
Yeah, this carpet gotta be about 16 years.
Sir?
Tony managed a property owned by the Mormon Church. That's where he met David Hardy, a church volunteer and a hog feed salesman.
How much traffic did they really get?
That meeting would change everything.
I remember him saying one day, as we were standing in that hallway talking about this, he said, "You know, Tony, I don't know a whole lot about mental disorders, but," he said, "I spent 20 years in the animal feed industry." He said, "I used to formulate feed for livestock," and he said, "There was something that I saw commonly in the hog pens."
David's barnyard observation would prove pivotal.
We now return to Medical Wonders.
By January of 1996, Tony Steffen was at his wit's end. His wife had committed suicide after a decade-long battle with bipolar disorder. Then his daughter and son were diagnosed with the same disease. 15-year-old Joe was tormented, too, by suicidal thoughts.
I was always quite certain that I would never make it through, you know, to next summer or to the beginning of school again, stuff like that. I was always expected, I kind of expected myself to be dead by then.
Then, Tony's friend David Hardy came up with a radical idea. Take Joe off his medication and instead give him a modified animal feed supplement used to calm pigs.
Sometimes you'll come into a barn like this and the pigs will be just extremely irritable and start biting their pen mate, sometimes even savaging them, taking chunks out of their hindquarters or whatnot.
David believed the pigs got violent because they were missing some essential nutrients in their feed. So he set out to create a nutrient supplement for the pigs.
We found that we could alter the trace minerals that were present in the feed, and that would usually solve the problem completely. And they would go back to being calm like these pigs are, basically.
It became commonplace to use nutrient supplements to keep penned pigs calm. But now David Hardy was proposing something quite different. A brilliantly simple idea. If adding essential minerals to pig feed worked to calm irritable and violent hogs, would the same approach work in mentally ill people?
There was a feeling of excitement that came with it. It was like all of a sudden opening up a book and seeing the answer that you've been looking for months and months and months. And the feeling that came with it was just, hey, we've got to do this.
They would create a human version of the supplement, and Tony's son Joseph would be their guinea pig. Joe's new stepmother was horrified by the idea.
Well, she was very, very afraid, and she said, look, we've got to refill this prescription. And I said, honey, we've got to try this without it. We know that the prescription, yeah, kind of takes the edge off, but he'll never be normal. And so we've got to go, for broke here. Let's do this thing the whole way.
David and Tony set up their makeshift lab in Tony's kitchen. They blended store-bought vitamins and minerals, such as calcium, amino acids, and antioxidants, trying to mimic the pig feed formula.
We started out just with the concept that many different elements, as broad a spectrum as you can provide, so that the body's getting everything it needs and that there's no deficiencies. We wanted to provide something very complete in that way, and we got it by combining 4 different products.
Getting out and everything. Lots of snow. It was very, very stressful. No question, and there was so much hope that this would work, that this would finally be the answer. Yeah, won't you?
David studied Joe's weight and nutritional intake and concocted a dose, capsules of vitamins and a mineral formula that he hoped would mirror the pig nutrient. And then they presented the revised supplement to Joe.
Well, I don't think he related it like that. This is pig feed we're going to give you here. But I was quite excited by the idea of something new. Maybe something would make me feel better. And I was willing to take a chance with that.
On January 18th, 1996, Joseph took his first daily dose of the re-engineered pig feed supplement, 6 capsules and 6 ounces of a liquid mineral mixture. 4 days later, Joe's lithium ran out. Over the next month, David dropped the liquid dose down to 4 ounces, then 2. Even after 5 days on the supplement, Joe felt better.
Once that stuff started to kick in, it's just like a fog lifted, and I could see what was right and wrong and how I should be acting.
All of a sudden he became gentle. His demeanor changed. No longer was he thinking erratically. He was starting to think positive about his life.
Joseph's delusions and depression disappeared. But meanwhile, his sister Autumn's emotional state was growing worse.
She, like her mother, had become extremely suicidal and had been hospitalized for suicidal tendencies and was on suicide watch and was on a major load of psychotropic medications.
For me, it took on a form of confusion, first of all, and just sort of scatterbrain behavior. By the end of grade 12, I couldn't tell time on a conventional clock.
Like other bipolar patients, Autumn became paranoid, delusional, and violent.
Every morning when my husband would leave, I would start in with this real fear, like kind of a panic thing. I'd hear him lock the door, and you know how you put a key in a lock and go click, click. But I'd lay there and I'd think, he pretended to lock the door, and now he's, you know, unlocking it so that the killers can come in. And I met him in the hallway and got really, really violent with him. I thought I was demonic. Like, I would be really afraid of reflective glass and mirrors and things. If I saw my reflection, I would see these faces floating around me, and it was just really, like, really terrifying.
And the timing couldn't have been worse. Autumn slipped into a period of extreme paranoia. Just after the birth of her first child, James, her thoughts terrified her family.
I thought I needed to kill the baby. I obsessed about ways to kill myself or to kill the baby. I didn't recognize what I was doing or thinking as really odd. It just seemed logical to me.
Doctors tried a regimen of medications that cost almost $200 a month, but nothing controlled her slide.
Haldol, Ribotril, Ativan, Epival, and then Cogentin was to counteract the Haldol, because Haldol makes you very stiff. You can't walk or bend. So it's like a rigid thing. Gosh, I mean, I wasn't even able to take care of myself at that point.
Autumn couldn't be left alone with her baby, so her husband suggested she move into her father's home.
And I remember how I just about wept when she walked through the back door, and she looked so bad. She was so drugged out. And trying to talk and trying to communicate with her was a chore.
Tony looked at Autumn and saw his late wife all over again. He urged Autumn, who had been sick for 6 years, to try the supplement too.
Don't worry, because Joe's off his meds and he's doing great. And you know, we're going to get you down here, we'll get you all fixed up. And I just snapped. I was furious. I couldn't believe that he was rocking the boat. My psychiatrist, my specialist, had said, you rock the boat and you will die.
Oh, I said, look, you're going to do this. And I won't say that I forced her to do it, because it doesn't sound politically correct, but I constrained her to do it.
Not sure how they got it into me. It wasn't willingly the first couple doses, I'm sure. Even beyond that, I know he came home every day that week to make sure I was swallowing, you know, and check my mouth to make sure I was taking it.
5 days later, the sound of the water running. Autumn had turned a corner.
There was always a paranoid thing with the shower. I'd have to have either doors open or sometimes shower with clothes on.
The delusions were disappearing. The constant voices in Autumn's head had disappeared too.
She said, you know, Dad, I think we can do this. This is changing me. I feel better. I feel more energy. I feel like I can think through a thought, and I don't have those ugly, suicidal feelings on me all the time now, you know?
Hey, do you want to come over and look at the album?
Sure.
They told me when I was on the Haldol and a number of other medications, you know, maybe we'd want to consider having an operation so there wouldn't be any more risk of pregnancy, because the effects on a fetus would just be horrendous.
He was that champ, wasn't he? Oh, yeah.
I'm just so glad I didn't take that advice. I've got 2 little girls now. It's kind of like starting over and getting a real life. It's been good.
Sure.
I absolutely believe that it's the hand of God, that this is an answer to our prayers, absolutely. I think when I look at them today and I see that they have their existence, their life back, that they're whole, yeah, I believe that God answers our prayers. You bet.
We now return to Medical Wonders.
Spring 1996, and word was spreading across Alberta about Tony Stephan's improbable discovery. Bipolar disorder had claimed his wife, and 2 of his kids had begun showing signs of the mental illness. But he had stumbled onto a pig feed nutrient supplement, concocted by feedlot manager David Hardy. It seemed to eradicate the disorder. News of the incredible treatment for Tony's son Joe and daughter Autumn traveled fast.
People would just come out of the blue. They'd say, hey, look, I'm hearing about what you're doing in southern Alberta. We're up in Edmonton. Can you come and help my wife? Do you think that she could try this?
With 1% of North Americans suffering from bipolar disorder, Tony knew there were 3 million people and their families suffering just like his family.
I want to see it so that the Autumns and the Josephs of the world will be able to have a life, be able to function on their own, to find happiness, because that's what life is all about. We need to get across is the fact that
Tony and David decided they had a moral obligation to make the supplement available to anyone who asked for it.
I think within the first month or two, we started sharing this with other people in small groups.
Tony and David mixed up small batches of the supplement to give to everyone who asked for it.
And we actually paid for the product because we couldn't expect people to buy this because it was so experimental. We would hand these out to these individuals and we'd say, okay, give us a try.
But they would only provide the supplement on one very important condition.
You do this for 60 days. We're going to give this to you. There's no charge for it. But if you take it, you have to do this. And what we do is we want you to work with your doctor so he's aware or she's aware of what you're doing.
By the summer of 1996, there was so much demand for their homemade nutrient supplement, Tony and David decided to incorporate. They formed a company called the Synergy Group and began researching places to mass produce the product.
These products represent some of the stages that we've gone through in the development of the current product that we have.
It was trial and error. David found levels of essential minerals could fluctuate, depending upon the supplier, making the dosage inconsistent. Yet, as they handed out their latest samples of their prototypes, the success stories spread. By 1999, they had so many requests for information, they set up another non-profit company called True Hope to manage a website and provide information. It took almost 3 years to come up with a product that they felt most closely matched the first batch. But they knew it would be tough to manufacture and sell the supplement in Canada because of health regulations. So they went south to the United States and went into mass production at a plant in Farmington, Utah. They named their product Essential Minerals Power Plus, or EMPower, and began selling it by mail order. To date, over 3,000 people in Canada and the US spend over $100 a month to take the pills every day. Today, requests for EMPowerplus are channeled through 4 call centers like this one in a 2-story industrial park in Lethbridge, Alberta.
True Hope Support Center, how may I direct your call?
The call centers are staffed by people who now take EMPower.
Now, I'm a bipolar 1 rapid cycler. The only thing I take is a supplement. I have a brand new life. The loading dose is 32 pills a day. You take them 4 times a day, and you wouldn't want to take them on an empty stomach. We do encourage that your doctor get involved. If you can talk to him, we'll send out information or even talk to him if he's willing.
We'll talk to you in a month. Bye-bye.
What qualifies them to give advice to people about any nutritional product for psychiatric problems?
Not everyone has leapt on the EMPower bandwagon.
I pay attention to the kind of things that are hyped on the internet and on television. This has to be some kind of dubious product.
Dr. Terry Polivoy is a dermatologist in Waterloo, Ontario. Polivoy runs a website called Canadian Quackery Watch.
If the phone's being answered by lay people who may be psychiatric patients themselves, they could be manic depressive, they could be delusional, they could be schizophrenic, they can have all sorts of conditions. My fear is basically, and we've had reports from some patients, if they stop their present medication, they're going to have a relapse and end up getting very sick and ending up in hospital, and potentially we could even see a suicide attempt or something like that.
And other doctors share Polivoy's fears. Even Autumn's former doctor, Klaus Gendeman, is skeptical about her recovery.
This may well be just a spontaneous remission. There are people who've had manic depression at some point in their lives and it does not continue for all of their life. So I don't know.
6 years is a long time to be in remission for someone that was as severe as what she was with her
I'd like to
psychotic.
know where he gets the information that bipolar goes into remission. I wonder how many times he's seen that in his career.
While specialists might not call it remission, they do concede a 6-year lapse in symptoms is unusual. But Dr. Gendeman has a lot more questions about EMPowerplus.
Is it potentially toxic? Is it neurotoxic over time, a cumulative effect? I don't know. But I certainly wouldn't want to be the one trying this and finding out at some later point that there is some potential long-term negative effect.
But when I described to him what I was doing with the vitamins and minerals, he just said, I don't know about this. I don't know how that works. I think you have to be careful. If you're taking megadoses, it can hurt your liver. And I just said, well, so Haldol, Rivotril, Ativan, Epival, Cajentin, that's not going to hurt my liver?
And just as prescription drugs don't work for some bipolar patients, EMPowerplus sometimes doesn't work either. Laura Foster is a patient of Dr. Gendeman's. He agreed to supervise Laura as she tried EMPowerplus just before a big family wedding.
I was getting really excited about having people here, and then I just got really wound up and I couldn't sleep, and I started going for a few days without sleep, and I know that that is a sign that I could be going up, I could be going manic.
For Laura, the supplement had little benefit, and the side effects were severe. About 4% of people on EMPower have to quit due to nausea and intestinal upset.
By the end of 6 months, I was still having problems with the nausea and just not feeling good, and I felt my spirits, my overall mood just really went down.
The harm that they're doing is they're promising people something they can't deliver. Do they have insurance if some of these patients get sick? I mean, do they make people sign waivers? You know, who is supervising this?
You know, if you're going to say, well, you don't have this proof that it works and you don't have that proof, well, give us an opportunity to show then with the research. Just let the research go forward and we'll all see. That seems to be the fair way to do it, and that's something that I can understand. Wanting to shut it down prematurely, to me, indicates that you have an agenda.
Yeah.
And that's how we feel about Terry Paulboy.
I think most of the critics of the supplement have never been sick. I mean, people are desperate. And if you've never been there, you don't know how good it feels to be well, and so you know, say what you want. I'm well, and I know plenty of people that are, and that's a wonderful thing. It doesn't really matter what other people think.
Everyone agrees on one thing. EMPowerplus needs to be validated by science.
We knew that the world wasn't ready to take this from the hog feed salesman and the engineer. You know, we knew we had to go beyond that and legitimize this with real research.
So Tony Stephan and David Hardy set out to turn the skeptics into believers.
We now return to Medical Wonders.
It all began with the last-ditch effort of a desperate father to save his children from the grip of bipolar disorder.
Hey, what are you covering on the end?
Tony Stephan and David Hardy adapted a nutrient supplement that controls irritable behavior in pigs and fed it to son Joe and daughter Autumn. They claim their supplement, called EMPowerplus, works wonders on bipolar disorder, and they began manufacturing the supplement and marketing it through a website and call center.
That's critical to
But they know doubts about the product won't be dispelled until a scientific study is done.
Yeah, the information we provide them.
If we want this to be legitimized, we need the research. We need scientists that are open-minded to take a look at this.
Open-minded does not exactly describe the reaction from Brian Kolb, a neuroscientist at the University of Lethbridge in southern Alberta.
My first impression was this was nuts.
Still, Kolb listened to Tony and David and then talked to some people taking EMPowerplus. Kolb was impressed. For Tony and David, this was the first scientist who listened. It was a turning point.
I have a brother-in-law who has had a chronic anxiety disorder, and so out of curiosity we had him take the supplements, and he certainly wasn't normal, but he was far better than he'd been in the 30 years that I'd known him. So it struck me that maybe there is something to this.
Kolb urged Tony and David to contact University of Calgary psychologist and researcher Bonnie Kaplan, a specialist in nutrition and behavior. At first, Kaplan was reluctant to see them.
I dealt with all the true believers and flaky people I wanted to in the 1980s when I'd been studying nutrition, and I just didn't want to get involved.
She probably thought they were a pair of flakes.
Yet, by the end of that meeting, Kaplan agreed to look further into their claims.
You could tell that they were sincere. They had made a choice. They could have taken their discovery out into the marketplace and tried to make a lot of money, and instead they were beating their heads on what I call the door of academia, and also the doors of many physicians, saying, look, we think we've made a discovery. Would you please take a look at this? We want it validated by science. That's what they've said.
Okay, what do we have?
Kaplan put together a questionnaire for 11 bipolar patients chosen to test EMPowerplus.
What this bar graph shows is that after they'd been on the supplement for 6 months, there was a significant drop. That's what the cross-hatched bars are. Significant drop in symptom severity of all 3 scales: depression, mania, and overall psychiatric health. Overall, it's more than a 50% improvement. That's difficult to achieve in people with bipolar disorder.
Kaplan published her findings in the Journal of Clinical Psychiatry, but instead of drawing interest, the study drew the ire of her peers. They insisted her work was invalid because it didn't isolate and test each ingredient in the supplement to determine the active ones.
Early on, a very senior scientist looked at what we wanted to do and said no reputable scientist would study more than one ingredient at a time. And that is a way of thinking that used to, it was part of my training too. You don't change more than one variable at a time. So I've had to try to convince people along the way that in this case, the one variable is in fact a spectrum of nutrients. And that's a new way of thinking.
So 20% cutoff would give us, that's just another.
Kaplan was so excited she began to prepare a groundbreaking study into EMPowerplus.
There are dozens and dozens of good studies on normal people showing that our mood varies according to what we eat. There are studies on people in mental hospitals giving them things like manganese and showing a change in their mental health.
But her plans would soon come up against a regulatory roadblock. At the same time, a medical doctor and Harvard professor heard about the supplement through a friend who'd used it to treat his son. Dr. Charles Popper decided to try it on 22 of his bipolar patients. 19 showed significant improvement. Harvard asked Dr. Popper not to speak on behalf of the university about his study because it was not submitted for internal review.
I think it's an indication that Harvard University is being used by someone outside of Harvard University.
Dr. Terry Polivoy challenges the validity of Popper's and Kaplan's results, and he also questions Bonnie Kaplan's independence from the Synergy Group.
She's not even a psychiatrist. So, if she makes her living going around as a spokesperson for a startup vitamin company that has no credibility whatsoever, I think I would demand a little bit more common sense.
Kaplan denies having any business relationship with the Synergy Group.
All of us who are studying this are quite comfortable with reasoned skepticism. There are, unfortunately, some people who are beyond skeptical. They are fanatically opposed to even studying it. This is not reasonable and doesn't deserve the time of day.
And just when it looked like EMPowerplus would finally get the scientific scrutiny Tony and David crave, Health Canada responded to Bonnie Kaplan's proposed research. Kaplan applied to study EMPowerplus under the rules governing nutrient supplements. But Health Canada concluded that the supplement is a drug and must go through the same testing as other medicines. And that could take years.
We get very frustrated with Health Canada's position because they're too slow. This year alone in North America, there'll be close to 40,000 suicides. We have to find a better answer for the mentally ill.
Kaplan vowed to fight the ruling. Health Canada banned the sale of EMPowerplus, but the Synergy Group bypassed the ban by shipping the product from the U.S.
We knew that it was an uphill battle right from day one, that we were swimming upstream, and we're still swimming upstream.
6 years after the re-engineered pig feed supplement was first tried on a human, there is still no unimpeachable scientific proof that it works.
Okay, and this shows her response after 90 days on the program. You can see that.
Despite that, people continue to try the pills. People like Lori Stringer.
Hi, Lori, just have a seat.
Okay.
Lori Stringer has battled bipolar depression for 20 years. She spent the last 15 years unemployed or in temp jobs and in and out of mental institutions.
And how's it been for you?
I've been thinking about, being off my meds, and so...
For months, she followed the controversy and hype surrounding EMPower before she brought it up with her doctor.
Because I've been on prescription drugs for 20 years. I've been confined, I've been set back, I've missed opportunity, I haven't done the things I want to do. So I feel like I'm going to discover a whole new me.
Lori hopes EMPowerplus will do for her what prescription drugs have not.
Eventually would like to feel my own energy come back, parts of my personality breaking through. It's kind of like right now, I know what I have goals and ideas, but I'm behind this big wall and I can't get to them, and I'm hoping to break down that wall. And
My going along with this is not because I have experience with the EMPowerplus and saying this is a good product. It's an unknown, but I'm willing to be a part of helping her to find the answer for herself.
Okay, I think I'm recording. Hi, this is a really bad shot.
Lori is going to keep a video diary at home of her progress on the supplement.
Starting to feel a bit lethargic because my medication that I'm taking is starting to interact with the True Hope EMPower. On May 30th, I'm going to see my psychiatrist, and he's going to hopefully taper down for the first time. I'm just so hopeful for the promises True Hope are going to do for me, and I'm so happy to be reducing my medication. But I'm going to do it slowly. And that's all for today. I do not look great, but this is it. Thanks.
We now return to Medical Wonders.
Hi, it's June 17th today, and I've been taking EMPower since May 21st. I have noticed some changes, like some totally new feelings where I just feel totally relaxed. I feel brighter, and I feel like my mind is not racing. When I do reduce my lithium again, which will be in the next week or so, it will be the real test. Last time I went off my lithium, it was disastrous, and within 24 hours, I had lost my job. I'm afraid that that disastrous cliff dive is going to happen. Like when I go to bed tonight, am I going to go to bed and go to sleep right away, or am I going to get up and start painting my bedroom?
After 2 decades on prescription medication, Lori Stringer is about to reduce her lithium dosage. She has pinned her hopes on the promise of EMPowerplus. Will it deliver?
Robbie?
For 5 weeks, Lori Stringer has been taking EMPower to treat her bipolar or manic depression disorder. For the past week, she's been taking less than her prescribed dosage of lithium, her regular medication, and she's gradually feeling a bit better.
Being in my own mind, kind of like the gate has opened, like, you know, a wall has crumbled down. It's like when you meet a person, you get a sense of them. And it's like I'm meeting myself, I'm getting a sense of who I am. Like very calm and relaxed. And I have, you know, moments of that I wouldn't normally have.
Recently, Lori landed a new job as a receptionist at a law firm, but it will be months before she'll really know how well EMPower has worked.
Now I want to just explore my own personality and, you know, find my hidden talents, and I want to feel good for once in my life. I don't want to feel like, you know, I'm going to kill myself ever again. I don't want to feel like, you know, I'm depressed. I don't want to feel like I'm an alien from space. I just want to feel part of the human race.
2 months into her trial, Lori says she feels much better. But her doctor warns it's too early to credit EMPower. He says some patients come off their meds and stay well for a long time before relapsing.
What I'm going to give you now, I want to put a caveat on. Once again,
even though Health Canada has ordered the Synergy Group to stop selling EMPowerplus, that hasn't stopped Tony Stephan and David Hardy from continuing to sell it and continuing to host seminars on the supplement all over Western Canada.
we want to give you information so that you're empowered, so that you as a person can make informed decisions. That's critical.
David and Tony's seminars are a mix of pep rally and complicated science borrowed from the pages of medical journals.
Why? Giving people minerals and vitamins and a few antioxidants and a couple of amino acids would fix a devastating illness like bipolar disorder.
Tony and David hear the same horror stories wherever they go. Medications that don't work, side effects worse than the illness itself.
No, none of us are medical practitioners. No.
So some of the things that I learned from years and years of doing this with pigs, I put to use in this, and it works.
This is a very simple program. You just take the nutrients.
This is 36 different nutritional ingredients and arguably one of the most complete supplements that has been put together.
And we help you.
Tony and David have quit their jobs to promote EMPower full-time. But they say they're not getting rich off it.
We put everything we had into it to keep it going for the first, well, 4.5, 5 years. It was pretty dry there for a while.
In terms of what has been put into this in the past, nowhere near a break-even point.
But Tony and David say it's not about the money. It's about giving people back their mental health. 6 years after her first dose, Tony's daughter Autumn now works as a senior manager for Synergy.
This chart here, it's just a simple print off. I think it's something that we've all seen. It's weekly data collection.
And Joe has graduated from high school and works as a forklift operator.
I can do whatever I want now. You know, I know that I can function when I have to. I don't have to worry about having a relapse or anything. You know, things are looking up quite a bit.
It was 8 years ago that Debbie Stephan was laid to rest in a cemetery overlooking the town of Cardston, Alberta. 8 years since Tony Stephan began the quest to prevent his children from following their mother down the tragic path of mental illness.
I think there is justice in life, even though I think that we've been dealt sometimes I often thought it was an unfair blow. She should be here with her children. And yet at the same time, I also look at the situation and I say, how many people have benefited from her demise? If somebody can be helped because of this, and what we've gone through as a family, then it's been worth it.
It's been a journey for Tony that has led to an unimaginable destination.
This was the last prescription that my son ever took of lithium. I've never had to use this. He's never gone back to that point where he's ever had to use a medication like this. That's a symbol. It's a symbol of freedom and success in this program, because he has his life back today.
EMPowerplus doesn't work for everyone, but Tony Stephan welcomes more research to find out exactly how the supplement changed the lives of his children. He's confident research will show that it did.
6 years down the road, I want to buy a history book, and I want to read in there that they found that neuropsychiatric disorders were nothing more or less than a nutrient deficiency disorder. When the world accepts this as the new program for treatment of the mentally ill, there'll be hundreds and hundreds of companies that will produce nutrients just as good as what we produce.